Hi there, this is Sheena Rowlands and today I'm sharing with you my latest layout for Colour Stories Inspiration Challenge. So this is case file 476 and it's got a real summery theme. So I've got together some Carta Bella Summer Market and some Maggie Holmes Sweet Story because I think they go really well with the colours in this case file. So I'm just having a look at the papers. I want to use some strips, so I'm just having a think what I've got and what go with the colours and go with the photos. So they're photos that were taken during some strawberry picking, because one of the things to include is document a beach trip, vacation or anything related to the summer. And strawberry picking in the UK is a big thing. There's lots of pick your own farms where you can go and spend an afternoon. So that's what I want to document in this layout. So I'm picking some papers that I like and I'm cutting some using a template into a bit of a bumpy scallop, because on the list of evidence that you can use, scallops and decorative borders are on that list. So I think that's a good idea to incorporate something decorative in the strips that I'm making. The word sweet is a chipboard title from the Sweet Story range, so I think that's definitely going to make it. So I've torn some strips. I've used my trusty Fiskars ruler. I had it as a card maker and I've been a scrapbooker for about 15 years, so goodness knows how old that is. But I do love the ruffled edge, but the straight edge that it gives. So I've used that on all these strips. They're about an inchish wide. I've tried not to be too particular and I'm going to add a bumpy scallop to each of those. I brought in a couple of papers there just to back the photos as well, and I'm going to overlap them a little in the centre. And the title will go on the top strip. So I'm just trimming this one down. I think it's a bit, I want some gap, I want some white cardstock in between them. So I think that one must have been a little bit bigger than an inch. I really like these film strips, so I think I'm going to cut them and tuck them in. I'm going to see how they fit at the end. So I'm not going to cut them yet because they're too nice for that. So I'm just having a look at these chipboard phrases and the stickers from Carta Bella. I didn't seem to have much of this range. I think I only had one pattern paper and the stickers, so and I've had them a while, so they're not relatively new, but definitely fit the colours for this case file. So I'm now thinking about adding some sort of decoration to each of these strips. So I'm having a look what stickers and word phrases are available. I'm cutting the stickers with the background intact. In case I don't use them, then they can go back in a plastic 12 by 12 bag. So I'm just being a bit cautious, which is kind of the way that I scrapbook. So it's, if you've watched me before, you'll have seen me do this multiple times. So just to give you a reminder, CSI is a twice monthly challenge. There's a Facebook group, there's an Instagram as well. And these case files that Debbie produces, they're amazing. You get an image, you get colours, you get a list of evidence, and then some suggested, they call it testimonies, but some suggested topics. So as I said at the beginning, I've gone with anything related to summer on this one. So that's the testimony sorted. You can see that I'm using the colours that were in it. And there's also a list of evidence. So I'll go through that in just a second, but I decided that I wanted to add some ink onto the background behind the strips. So I've come in with some Tim Holtz stamps and some, these are oxide inks. Generally they're the only inks I use these days. I'm just having a look at the colours. I'm just testing it on the back of the cardstock. So instead of tipping everything off the cardstock and putting on the mixed media, I've decided it's just a piece of cardstock. So I brought in a fresh piece. I'll do the mixed media on the left, then I'll move everything over from the right, if that makes sense. And it also helps me a little bit with the placement. I'm kind of alternating the blue and the yellow. I'm going to bring in the darker yellow later on as well, I think, to add a little bit more. But I'm just picking out the two colours from the pattern papers on the right. And very little of it will show at the end. It'll probably just stick out the sides, but I just felt it needed something else behind it, between the strips of paper, if that makes sense. So going back to the evidence, so the idea is these are meant to help you stash bust. So there's a long list. There must be 20, 25 things on this list, and I haven't used them all on this layout. Sometimes I see it as a bit of a challenge to use as much as I can, but because I wasn't going with a beachy theme, some of the things weren't necessarily appropriate for my layout. but one of the things it says small dots, it says wood grain, stripes, summer elements, it says scallops, decorative border, splatters and a cursive font, and I've used all of those. But it really makes you think about your stash. It makes you maybe scrapbook a little differently to normal, and anything that makes you, you know, stirs up your mojo and gets you scrapping is always a good thing. So Debbie also offers prizes on the Facebook group, so I would really recommend you check them out. Even if you just go and have a look to start with, there's loads of inspiration there. There's a really big design team, and we all scrapbook really differently, and you'd be surprised how many different layouts you can see just from one case file. So I would really recommend, if you've got a little bit of time, or you make a cup of tea and have a quick look around, there's loads of inspiration for you to get creating. So I'm bringing the strips back in that were there on the plain paper, and I'm now adding them over the top of the inks. And as you can see, a lot of it's getting covered up. That's absolutely fine. I'm ripping the short edges of the strips as well, just to make them slightly different lengths across the page, and then I'm adding the scallops back over the top. And I think I like the colour combos that I've picked, and then I'm actually going to stick them down off camera. So I'm just going to add the photos now in the centre, just a bit of double-sided tape behind the layers. Just want them to be roughly central, and I want them to overlap a little bit. So I'll just spend a bit of time trying to figure out where they go and adding the title. And I do come back in with the frames. I just cut this one in half and tuck it in either side, and then I found a smaller one in the Sweet Story, so I'm going to add that as well. Try not to push them in too much, because I am going to add some embellishment on the left of the photo, and it's pointless tucking it in if I'm pushing it in too far, if I'm then going to cover most of it up. So it does take me a few minutes just to tweak it, and then I took it off camera and I did some black machine sewing on each of the scallops. Just some wavy lines and a bit of zigzag, but I thought it actually worked a lot better with the black in the photograph and with the black title, just to bring in a bit more of it, because there's no real black in any of the papers that I've picked. So I'm now coming back in with the embellishments. I want to add a little cluster to each of the strips and to this side of the photograph. Now in the Sweet Story there were a couple of chipboard strawberries, so they're going to have to make it on, aren't they? So I'm just adding a bit of foam pads to the back of them, and that's because I actually peeled off the original sticky from the chipboard, because I didn't know where I wanted them to go. I didn't want them to keep sticking to stuff accidentally, so I peeled it off, and then I'll add the sticky where I want it. And the same with the word, with the sweet. I wanted to put some foam pads on there, so I just peeled off the back layer so I could not get into any mishaps with it sticking to something. So that word underneath is in cursive font that says summer, so it says Sweet Summer, and you'll see that more in the close-ups. I did wonder about using the summer market. Well, it wasn't quite a market they were at a pick your own, so I don't think that actually made the cut, but I was just having a play around with some of the word phrases and some of the stickers. The flowers perfectly fit the colour scheme, so I knew I was going to add some of those. I also brought in a few shenanigan hearts. These are 3D printed embellishments. They're only a few millimetres thick, so they're not huge when it comes to, if you don't like your albums to be full and chunky. But they have got a 3D-ness to them because they are 3D printed by a little company that I run, and I'll put a link to that in the comments below. But the teal hearts particularly seem to go really well with the papers that I'd picked, so I'm going to add a few of those in on the layout. I've just used a bit of wet glue to stick them down just to keep them secure, because I'm going to actually add bits over the top of them, just some phrases. And these were some Echo Park brads, and I do add a couple either side of the word summer just to highlight it a little more. I'm literally now just doing the finishing touches. I think it fits with the case file really well. It's not too hard a design either, so if you fancy having a go at something very similar. I decided I wanted a bit more black, so I brought in some liquid black acrylic paint, and I'm just adding some very fine dots around the clusters. You can barely see them. And then I just go down the checklist and see what I've used, make sure that I've given it a good go for the challenge. So here's the full image, and some close-ups. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you here again real soon. Bye for now.